Hey there. Thanks for tuning in. You ready for another episode of My Bigfoot Sighting? All right then, let's do this.
Seen a bunch of run-down no-horse towns where the church is the backbone, loves in the plow, and the five-string melodies grooving, with the farmland rows where the roots run deep, beyond the noise of the busy streets, where the songs of the South are soothing. When I hear the front porch picking down, home rhythm ringing out, I don't run from banjo music. Yeah.
If you've had a Bigfoot sighting and would like to be a guest, please go to mybigfootsighting.com and let me know.
My Bigfoot sightings led me to create the group BFD, Bigfoot Discovery Ops. Hi everyone, I'm Tommy G. I'm the founder of Bigfoot Discovery Ops, formerly of the state of Washington. But now I moved to Texas, Montgomery, Texas area. And I'm excited to be able to share my stories with you about two sightings that I've had of Bigfoot. But before we get started on that, I should let you know that I've been interested in Bigfoot since I was like 11 years old, because there was a movie back in 1957. It was called The Abominable Snowman, and it was starring Forrest Tucker. And if any of you are from the old days of F Troop, you remember Forrest Tucker. Well, Forrest Tucker created that movie because he was interested in Yeti, or the Abominable Snowman. And that was where I got started. I was just so impressed with it. But I've gone back and watched it since the days of being young and listening to what's going on there. He's tracking the way we track today, exactly how looking for him and the methods and doing research of the time. And so it's very interesting how that part hasn't changed, that you get that Bigfoot bug in you and you don't let go of it. It's just so much there that you want to know. And that's what it talks about, discovery. I want to discover more about Bigfoot. I want to know the truth. I want to share the truth. I want people to know that, yeah, Bigfoot's for real. But I will say this, based on evidence that I have, I can't convince you that Bigfoot is real. You have to figure that out yourself. You're going to have to decide on your own, or just ignore it. One thing that I really am not happy about is being on Facebook and sharing experiences and having people coming on and calling you bad names and telling you that, oh, you're sick, you need a doctor. Well, I don't need people like that. So I just say, if you're not wanting to listen to what I have to share, or if you want to sharpshoot me, I'm not even going to pay attention to you, because I've got more time. I need to share my time with people who want to know the truth that I can share with. I'll let you know, it was back about 12 years ago when I started BFD. I didn't know I was going to have a group to start with. Started going to a new Bigfoot monthly meetings up in a little town in Washington called Puyallup, Washington. And there's Thund Airfield there. And there was a gentleman who was starting this group. Matthew A. Johnson is his name. I don't know, some of you might know him, but he is a clinical psychiatrist who practices up in Washington. And he had a sighting when he was out in the woods down by Mount St. Helens, I believe it was. And he was so shaken with it that he decided, hey, I'm going to start my own group and see if I can help people who have seen Bigfoot and want to know what it's all about. So he's been very helpful to people. And so we started going to those meetings, me and my friend Donis. And we wanted to know more about it. And they'd bring guest speakers in. And there's one guest speaker came in, and he had a group. It's called Bigfoot Ops. Well, the ops thing is a military thing, and me being a 25-year veteran of the U.S. Army. And this gentleman was a 20-year veteran of the Army as well. And so we were in akin there with the ops part. And I asked him, if I start my group, if I could call it that. He said, sure, go ahead. So again, is what it's all about is discovery and going out and finding out about Bigfoot. So I finally wanted to go, I'm going to share with you now my first sighting. My first sighting, prior first sighting. We went out in the woods. I met with these guys that are in his group, and it was, we got out there before dark. It's always good, that's the military side of us, recon the area, get to know the roads, the ingress and egress to the site that you're at. And another thing is making sure there's no one else around that's going to, hinder your experience. Well, we get down there, we're walking down the road, and it's just right at dark. And the guy turns to me and says, "Did you do that?" And I said, "What? Did you throw that rock?" I said, "No." "What do you mean, did I throw a rock?" And he says, "Well, Bigfoot just threw a rock at us," he said. I said, "What?" This is my first time out. Okay. So it's all new to me. And so we continue walking on down, and you can hear branches breaking around us, but to me, it's my first time out, so I wasn't really paying much attention to it. So we're turning around and walking back to where our little research area is, crossing the same area where the first rock was thrown. Here comes another rock, and it landed in front of us, just skipping down the trail there. We're up in areas where there's logging trails. So the roads are defined, okay? So they're not paths, but there's 2 tracks going down with the grass in the center kind of a deal. And we just remarked on that, and we continued to walk back up the hill and stop there. If you look down the hill where we were at, it's about a mile straight. And so it's a nice, clear view of what's going on. And we got up there and set up some cameras and everything. They use radios to communicate back and forth with each other, kind of like they do on the Bigfoot movies you see on TV. Anyway, we're sitting there and heard a noise. And sure enough, went back and had the recorder going. And you could hear this. The first time I heard, it was like a noise. And we looked at each other and said, "What was that?" He says, "Well, I don't know. It's pretty close." But that was the experience there. But later on, we went down and had a gifting table, a big stump where the tree had been cut off. And they like to put peanut butter and jelly sandwiches out to kind of attract the attention of Bigfoot to lure them in. And we're going down there, and there's 2 of us. 2 of them and me. And it's that's probably about midnight. It's just plain dark. Pacific Northwest is dark. And so if you've been there, you'll know what I'm talking about. And here I'm the newbie, right? Big tough guy, 6'2", 270 pounds. Yeah, I'm a big tough guy, But these guys were standing there, and they said, he turned and looked, he says, "Look, there's one standing there." And he took off running to chase the Bigfoot. And I'm standing there, and I'm going, oh no, this is not good. And I was very scared. I got to tell you, very, very scared. And they came back, and I told them, "Don't ever do that again." He says, "What?" I said, leave me standing there like that. Anyway, we get back up to our little camp spot up there. He says, "Were you scared?" I says, No, I wasn't scared. Big tough guy, right? He says, "No, you were scared, weren't you? Come on." I said, "Yeah." I finally admitted to him, "Yeah, I was scared. You left me out in the middle of nowhere for the first time for looking to find Bigfoot, of all things." So that's what got us going. Donis wasn't with me on that trip. But we decided we wanted to find out more. So we were, like I said, we were up in the Gifford Pinchon Forest, which is just outside of the which encompasses, I should say, Mount Rainier. And there's also Tolney State Park there also. And we're kind of right in that same area, those two areas. So my buddy and I said, hey, let's go on down to the coast, the Washington coast, and see, what we can find. And we'd heard reports about Bigfoot being sighted on the Tohola, the little town is called Tohola, but it's the Quinault Indian tribe, reservation, Quinault Indian reservation or nation, just north of ocean shores, about 18 miles, I think it is. It was a very interesting location because it was kind of eerie. Years ago, along the coast, there were a lot of cedar trees. The cedar trees had been logged off. And so now you have new growth. But back then they weren't so, I'm talking about the turn of the century. Back then they didn't log like we do nowadays, where we're just very mindful about what trees we take down and everything. And they would leave lots of logs laying on the ground and everything. So over the years, the brush grows over those logs, the cedar, and the cedar can be used, harvested, and used for cedar shakes for roofs and siding of houses here in Washington State. Well, so now they have a new program where the federal government is paying the tribe to go get those logs. But since the first logging, there's all new trees growing up. And now how do they get back in there? It's like they take a big auger and they go through and make a big tunnel. And they auger through the woods. And here we're driving down this tunnel. It was just crazy. It's very spooky. I had a Jeep Cherokee that I had built just for this, where I had a big 48-inch light bar across the roof, big spotlights on the front, big headlights, high beam, big LED lights on the side and the back. My friends laugh. They see me come. They say, I look like a UFO coming in for a landing. But it does a good job. It really lights it up. But the nice thing about it, when you're going down the road with the side lights, we're looking for footprints as well, okay? And sign. We're looking for sign of Bigfoot. So anyway, we get down there where the road, further down, the road is like a horseshoe. And there's a landing there. So I backed my Jeep up into there and decided I got some sound to recover here. So I have a bionic ear that I posted. I got the bionic ear tripod out, and the bionic ear, if you don't know what a bionic ear is, it's basically a microphone with a dish about 14 inches in diameter. And then the microphone is in front of the dish. And so any sound that comes in reflects into there and then reflects into the microphone, and we're able to record it. So I can listen to the recording for sound, and it's also recording at the same time. Going back to the meetings up in Puyallup, when we first heard people talking about Bigfoot experiences, it sounded to me like Bigfoot's behind every tree. I'm thinking, I look at my buddy and said, do you believe that? He says, I don't know. It just sounds kind of crazy, doesn't it? I said, well, we're going to find out, So we're down there. This is in my mind, Bigfoot behind every tree now. And my friend goes up to the left of the horseshoe, and I'm at the right. And the vehicle's backed in, and the third guy is sitting in the Jeep. He asked me permission to sit in the Jeep, and I said, well, sure. Why not? He was feeling sick. Well, we also heard about infrasound. Well, guess what? It's as though infrasound, they always pick the weakest link to focus infrasound in. Infrasound is a sound that animals of prey can project out to confuse their prey so they can catch them. I'm talking about giraffes have it so they can protect themselves from lions. Elephants have it. Lions also have it to go out and project sound to confuse the prey. Okay. So researchers have found, they believe that Bigfoot uses infrasound to confuse people, because you're in their forest, which is basically their home. You are the outsider. You are a threat to them. They want to scare you off, so they use scare tactics to scare you out of the woods. So they don't know that you have a good heart, which my friend and I do have a good heart, believing in Bigfoot and not wanting to harm anybody. We had nothing in our mind that they would harm us. That's not even there. So here I am back to setting up the Banjo. And this is right at dark. We're on the coast now. You can hear the waves crashing on the beach, but you can't see it because there's a lot of forest between us and the beach. Well, so here I am setting up, and I see movement off to the right of my peripheral vision. And I'm thinking about it, and I see it again. And I said, no, I'm not looking. I refuse to look. Okay, so I'm going along, still messing with this, putting it all together. And I see it again in the peripheral vision. I see it. And I said, no, I'm not looking. Meantime, I had plugged the cord into the bionic ear so that my friend who was sitting down in the Jeep, he was listening with headphones and a really long cord. So I didn't know that he was hearing things. We'll get to that in a minute or two. So I'm just finishing up, setting it just right, pointing in that direction towards the water. And the third time it happens, I see movement again. And I said, okay, I'm looking. I turned. Now remember, I'm 6 foot tall, and this bionic ear thing is over 6 foot tall. The bionic ear thing sits about my height. And so I wasn't looking down on the road or anything, but my eyes looked up. Just at that time, when I looked, I see this big shadow, this big silhouette, solid, dark, passing across that road, going towards the beach, towards the water. And it turned and looked right at me, and I saw red eyesight. I'm going to continue, but we'll get back to the red eyesight. Because what I saw, it's basically you see these Bigfoot pictures, T-shirts and stickers and stuff, where he's kind of walking along, which is a stride taken from the Patterson-Gimlin film of the Bigfoot walking in the river stream there. Well, the interesting thing was, because I could see the arms moving, because I could see kind of like the picture that this website has up, where it's dark, but there's a little light there, but you can totally see the whole silhouette. This thing must have been, I would have to say, at least 9 feet tall, at least, because I could see the hair. Not the hair, I should say. I could see the head, the shoulders, the arm swing, and the legs. As he stepped across the road, there was a little bit of light that came through where his arm was swinging next to him on the left. I'm looking at his left side. Left arm was swinging and moving forward as it stepped off the side of the road. Now, I'm standing there with my mouth hanging to the ground, I suspect, and I'm stunned. I feel numb. I wasn't scared. It wasn't a scared feeling. It was just like, dude, what did I just see? And then I hear noise coming from the left, and it's my buddy, Donis. He's walking up. He says, Tommy. And he grabs, and I'm standing there, of course, got my hands on the tripod, and I'm just looking with this, I'm sure it was a blank gaze, just looking off into the brush ahead of me. And he grabs my arm and he's pulling on it. He says, I just saw Bigfoot. And I turned and I looked at him I'm sure I was like dumbfounded. And he says, are you listening to me? Isn't that cool? I saw Bigfoot. You don't care? And I looked at him and I said, so did I. I said, I just saw Bigfoot over here to the right over here. And he told me that he saw Bigfoot come out of the woods. Now, my Bigfoot was in the side of where my vehicle was going towards the ocean because I'm facing the ocean. His Bigfoot came out of the bushes from the ocean side and crossed back over to where the Jeep was. Okay. Well, he said that his came crawling up, was on fours, and it stood up, and then the last step stepped off into the bushes, and he saw red eye sign. Well, this is interesting because I told you they're going to revisit red eye sign. Well, I believe, let's put it this way. When I say I believe in stuff, it's because I've heard other people talking about sightings of Bigfoot and what their experiences were. And so this knowledge base, you start to grow and build a stronger knowledge base of understanding about Bigfoot. And when we share information that we collectively say, oh yeah, well that's the way Bigfoot acts, or that's reminiscent of Bigfoot, right? That's because it's shared experiences and evidence that we've collected over time. So they were communicating with each other. I believe that the two Bigfoot were communicating because our experience has been they're never alone. So if you see one, you know darn good and well there's another one nearby or multiple ones. And so is what they will do is they'll do something to distract you, and you look over at the other one, and guess what? This one that you just saw or you heard over here, it's gone. That's how they escape being seen. It's a technique that they use. So a lot of people go into the woods and they say they were so scared that I'm never going into the woods again. That's because Bigfoot did a good job scaring them out. Okay. And you can understand why. They are creatures, okay, put on this earth, I believe, by God. And they have a right to the woods. It's their home. They're as scared of us as we are of them. And it's all because of the unknown. We don't know. We don't understand. And that's what this whole Bigfoot discovery or Bigfoot Discovery Ops is about. It's discovering about Bigfoot and learning more about them, learning that, hey, they're not mean, they're not cruel. I've heard stories about people saying, oh, Bigfoot killed 3 or 4 people in a camp out or something. I got to tell you what, that holds no water. I don't know. I have not and done investigating to find out it's not true. It's not true. So the only way you're going to find out, and that is by going out and finding out yourself and getting out into the forest to find out. Don't be afraid. Just get out there and you will become acclimated to the forest. You learn to see in the dark. You can see really good in the dark. You just got to learn how to use your senses when you're in the forest and everything. So now back to the Jeep. Okay, we agreed. I told my friend, hey, I saw one too. And so we're going, yeah, we're kind of like high-fiving each other. We saw a Bigfoot, dude. Well, okay, the other guy back in the Jeep, of course, he was feeling nauseous. And so he just wasn't feeling good. But remember, he had the headphones on, and he's listening. And he can hear, hold on, I can do this for you. He hears something like this. Remember I told you they're never alone? Well, in the group, there was someone back there clacking rocks together. You could hear them clacking rocks. And then they would rub them together, okay? Well, that's just interesting that's the kind of thing that we experience when we're out in the woods. And I have another story about that. We'll get to that after a bit here. So we all had an experience that night, and that we were very happy that we had that opportunity. I was new with cameras and stuff, but I did have recording, but did not hear any vocalizations from Bigfoot like you might normally hear, kind of grunts or whatever that it is, but they were quiet and very interesting. So we ended up packing up our stuff and headed out. It's very interesting because later I got to know the tribal members, and one of them was a tribal elder, and he was the guy who was in charge of doing the forestry thing and getting the reclaiming the old cedar logs and stuff. And so they had an industry there to be able to help pay for the reservation, the people on the reservation, that they were able to provide jobs and everything for the tribal members. And so I got to know him, and he sent me some pictures, some actual pictures that were caught by game cameras on their reservation. And the pictures were broad daylight, a full face of a Bigfoot right in the camera. It's interesting that you put up cameras out in the woods, animals will come because that camera doesn't belong in their forest or their home. What is this thing? So they're very interested in what it is. So you'll see the deers will come, the coyotes will come, raccoons will come, all the type of animals in the forest. I say the bears, the bears will come. Well, so will the Bigfoot. And here I have a picture of this face, hairy face that's kind of blurry, but you can see its eyes, you can see its nose, you can see its chin. It's got a little bit of facial hair on the chin. The skin is like a dark gray color, but the hair is more kind of a darker color. Around its face was kind of long and shaggy that came around on the sides of it. And the eye was kind of a golden color. When I first showed this at a Bigfoot symposium thing, I shared this photograph, and I had my back to it because I'd never seen it that large before. And everyone goes, "Oh!" That's when I found out he had golden eyes. Okay, and it was pretty exciting to see that. Well, that's one of the photographs that the elder gave to me. He sent me another picture. This part of the reservation is well known for hunters from around the world, where they hunt big game, Roosevelt elk, and big black bears. So people will come from all over the world to go on a guided trip to bag an elk or a bear from the Northwest. So they have areas that are marked off, areas where they'll go in and hunt, where they put barrels, and the barrels are like chained to the tree, and they put sweets in there, vegetables, food and stuff to attract the wild animals. And so, a normal barrel is about 4 feet high. Well, here in this picture is this barrel with a big fir tree right next to it that didn't have any branches down low. And here is a Bigfoot standing right next to that thing, showing about from the knees up. And the Bigfoot was twice as tall as that barrel. So I would put it somewhere around 8 to 8.5 feet tall. Very dark, very hairy. The hair did not flow. Again, we don't call the hair, we don't say Bigfoot has fur. We say Bigfoot has hair, because researchers have found that Bigfoot is human-like, okay? But their genes are not the same as human. So here is this fur that's coming straight out, kind of stick-like. But it appears that he's blurry, but the background is green foliage all around that is not blurry. So is what we figure is that this Bigfoot was cloaking. He's either going in cloak or out of cloak. Cloaking means they're able to camouflage themselves from being seen. I don't know how they do it. I can't explain it. There are people out there. If you go to the other websites, you'll find out about people who have researches and have ideas of how or why they cloak. Okay. But this is a beautiful picture of a full body Bigfoot. So that's pretty much that first sighting that I shared with you. I need to move on. I was talking to you about sound and how the Bigfoot will make sound. I was with the parent group, that guy I told you about, I went on my first trip with. This is about 4 years later. And we had a large group. I think there was 6 of us that were out. And the guy that was with me up in Washington, there's a small town called Auburn, Washington. And he was a paramedic, and he was also who became an Auburn policeman. And his brother was with us. And the guy, the parent group, was there, and he had a FLIR, forward-looking infrared camera, binoculars that you could look through both eyes. I had a single lens FLIR. Okay, they're cheap; they're about $800, but the other ones are about $1,200. So I went on the cheap. Anyway, we were playing music. He would play music like, which was really cool, Celtic music. Celtic music is just beautiful. You know, it's like nature kind of sounds and flutes and everything. And we played for about 10 minutes and then turned it off. And then Bigfoot would respond because they liked it. They'd be breaking branches off of trees, making noise, throwing big chunks of wood around, and even at this one point, shoved a tree over. Turned the music back on. So we turned the music back on. And then we have turned it off. And then we would also make sound. We would make sound like a barred owl would go, ho, 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 ho. And just letting them know there's sound out there. We would hear another one respond to us. And if you're real quiet, you can hear off in the distance, you can hear 1, 2, 3 more of them responding. The same thing, ho, 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 back to us, but only fainter. And then as time went on, the hoo, 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 hoo started getting closer to us. Next thing you know, we assumed we were surrounded by Bigfoot. Well, our vehicles are on a forest, a logging platform, and we're in line, and the founder's vehicle was up in front of me, and my Jeep was backed up with the tailgate up. We're sitting on the back opening of the Jeep. So it's me, it's the policeman, and his brother. And I'm looking down with my FLIR and looking, and the other guy, well, his name is Ben. I'll just use the name Ben. There was a Bigfoot down there. He's moving like he's picking up. We could only see the top of him. He shows up like a red hot signal is what we're looking at in the FLIR if you've never looked through one. And you could see it picking up things, and its arms were flaying around. And Ben comes walking up to us. He says, before Ben shows up, the Auburn cop he's hitting me on the right shoulder. Says, Tommy, there's a Bigfoot standing right over here. So I'm thinking, yeah, okay, you know, what do you know? It's your first time out, you know. And I'm focusing on what's going on over here on the left, out past Ben's vehicle. Well, he keeps hitting. It's a Bigfoot right here. And so I just ignore him. Then Ben's walking up, and he comes up and he says, hey John, have you ever looked through the FLIR? And he says, No, he says, here. Well, FLIRs have a button on them. That button you can push for single shot photographs, or you can do a video. You just got to know how to operate it. Well, this is the first time John had ever had a pair of those binoculars in his hands, and he didn't know what to do. He takes those, and remember, he sees Bigfoot off to the right, and he swings around and he looks over, looking up the hill to see if there was something there. And he says, oh my God, it's a Bigfoot. And next thing I know, he starts running towards it with the binoculars. And if you know anything about logging platforms, they're set kind of higher than where the trees, where they're at. And then there's ditches, big ditches next to them to get to run the water off from around the area where they're working. And I knew this, but he didn't know it. And so I ran behind him and grabbed him and pulled him back, or he would have gone head over tea kettle down into this ditch. Probably got bunged up pretty bad. Okay. And so anyway, I got him back up on top of the platform. He starts telling me what he saw. He says Bigfoot was crouched down kind of in a sitting position. You know, you put both your elbows on your knees. He said he stood up in front. That's what he saw when he said, oh my God. He stood up. He says this thing was probably over 9 feet tall and looked at me, just stared with his arms hanging down as this big, hot, glowing looking creature, pretty much full length, but there's bushes around. So it's right there from mid calf up is what he saw. He said at that point, it turned around and ran up the hill. And that's, you know, when he was wanting to follow it. He wanted to chase it, you know. Well, that's pretty much that night what happened. But now, at the same time this is going on, that Auburn cop had a cold, and he was coughing. Well, I had set up the bionic ear at the end of the road about 120 feet from where we were having this visualization. And so I had it turned on. I had it on recording, and I had the headphones there. For some reason, the headphones don't want to hang on the tripod. So they fall off, and they're laying on the ground underneath the tripod. Well, when I went back later, after our visit to the woods, I always do check any videos that I might have or any sound recordings that I have. And here's what I heard was, I heard it sounded like something walking up to the tripod, like in the gravel, somebody walking. So I have that on the recording. So everything I'm going to tell you now was on that recording. Well, then all of a sudden it was quiet. And then I start hearing this ticking noise. Well, I didn't realize that when the headphones are there, you can hear it because they got volumes adjustment on it. They were tuned up to really loud. So whatever the noise was echoing back in those headphones. And so I believe Bigfoot was hearing that. And I believe it was Bigfoot Daddy with a little foot. And so researchers we found will try to train the little ones and exposing them to humans. And so they will go out with them in the research area. Well, call it research area, but that's where we're at, in the woods, to quietly expose them to humans. Well, as what was happening was, I believe, the little one was throwing rocks at the headphones because he could hear. Because when my friend would cough, they were coughing too. They were mimicking him. And heard this researcher say that Bigfoot will mimic humans, or they'll mimic other animals. And so this continues on, and all of a sudden you hear a, well, that was Big Daddy telling the young one, knock it off. And so it goes like that for a while, and it's quiet. Then all of a sudden you hear, and you're hearing this noise again. Anyway, I have the recording, And it pretty much ended that night. We ended and we went back. Next day, we wanted to go back and find out why that Bigfoot could run up that hill without us hearing him running up. Here is on the uphill side of this logging platform is this beautiful field. You guys, it's awesome in the daytime. It's big green ferns. There's like 3 or 4 different types of ferns in the Northwest. And then there's a spear fern, too, that grows up on a tall shaft. They grow up about 6 feet tall, and they got branches out from them, really fine little fronds on them, all different types. And then there's moss everywhere. It's like a pillow. It's a field of pillows where you could run up there and you're not going to hear. Okay. And so we pretty much figured that one out. Anyway, there's more story to that, but let's move on to the second sighting that I had. In the Northwest, well, first of all, let's talk about Mount Rainier, because we're on the slopes of Mount Rainier. Mount Rainier was the 5th national park named. It was in 1899 by President McKinley for its natural forestry. It was just beautiful up there. Mount Rainier is 14,410 feet high. And it is an active volcano. There's activity there that takes place, volcanic activities. There's a lot of people come there because they want to go to hike up high where the glaciers are, where the steam melts the glacier back, where the water streams underneath. And here's like a big cave in there that's just lit up. And the ice is actually blue. It's just most of azure blue color you'd ever imagine. It's just gorgeous. You have to see it. I recommend you to go to Mount Rainier. But these are the type of scenes that you have up there. Well, people come from all over the world there. And so coming from Seattle, you have to get on a highway that goes, it's called the Mountain Highway, Highway 7 going south. You pick it up close to Tacoma, which is south of Seattle. And it branches off towards Mount Rainier. Anywhere in the state, you can look over and see this big, beautiful snow cone sitting over there. Anyway, so going down that road, it comes through several little towns, and there's a really little town, a whistle stop, they would call it back in the day, because of the loggers used the railroad, the trains, to get the lumber, the wood out of the forest down to Tacoma, where it would be sent to the logging mills or wherever it could be sent by ships. Back then, it was just local down in the little town of Eatonville, it's called, where they had a big lumber mill there. And they would process the lumber there, and they'd load it out on the trains and haul it to town. Well, coming into this little, if you leave Eatonville, you're going out to Little Elby, which is the whistle stop. And it's like a 90. The road is going due south, and then all of a sudden it turns and goes to the east. And then it comes around. There's a big lake there. Well, it's not a lake. Well, yeah, it is a lake. It's called Alder Lake. And Alder Lake is where this setting is at. It's located on Alder Lake. It's really the Nisqually River coming from the Nisqually Glacier. And there's a dam there at Alder. It's called Alder. And it backs up and makes Alder Lake. Well, Elby's right on Alder Lake. And so when you make the big curve and come down, you can look over and see the lake to the right. But up to the left here, there's someone's property there. Of course, it's been there for years. And it's like a big double wide trailer there, brown and kind of a yellow colors. And then off to the north of where the building is, there's like some little sheds out there. So whoever lives there, there's some kind of work shed they're using for something. We don't know what it is. And there's this one building there, and it has windows in it, and it has a window door. And the shed is like a lean-to, the lean-to roof. And so there's always activity going on there. When you drive by, you're always seeing these people living their life. They mow the grass. It's a big field, and they mow the grass and everything and keep it quite nice. So I'm going to meet Ben, the founder, the original founder that I first met. And I got to meet him over there in Elby. Well, Ben's a funny fellow. And he's very time conscious. And he says, Tommy, let's meet at 7 or 7:30. You better be there at 7:30, because if you're not there at 7:30, he's gone. And I didn't want to miss him, because I really was interested in what we were doing that day. Go back to that area where we first met, or was when I was left out in the woods alone. Again, this is a couple of years later, right? And so I'm coming down this road. And I'm not ready for anything. I got cameras with me and all kinds of stuff. But guess what? It's all packed and ready to go, because I'm not at the location I'm going to deploy it. So I'm coming down the road, and I look over, and it's like 7 in the morning. I'm supposed to meet him at 7:30, 7 in the morning. And it's a light, misty rain. If you're familiar with Washington, this was in March. I think it was March. And so it's kind of a rainy thing. It's like all day. It's kind of a mist rain. And so I look over into that field, and I see this guy. And I see his arms like flaying around and moving around over his head, whatever. And my immediate thought is this. Oh, you guy's chopping firewood. Well, guess what? He wasn't chopping firewood. It was a Bigfoot. And the reason I thought it was a guy was because I thought he was wearing rain gear. And so his fur was long, and it was red. I mean, a brownish red, which I've seen guys up in Washington, when you work out, when you're construction and stuff, you're always wearing rain gear. I've seen guys wearing reddish brown rain gear before. So that was my assumption. It was the guy doing firewood. And then I get to look, and it says, wait a minute. And I kind of turned away, because I'm on the road. There's people following me, and I don't know where I could pull over to look back and maybe get a picture, you know? And I do kind of pull over, and just kind of moving slowly. I look over, and this thing stands up. He stands up straight with his arms left and right, straight down, and is standing there still, not moving, next to this shed. Well, now let's talk about a shed, okay? Sheds are usually built at least, I'm going to say 4 inches, maybe a foot off the ground. And then up with the door was about a 7'6" is what doors are. And then built on the top of it, I'm just trying to give you an idea on how tall this guy was about 4 inches roof. So we're talking about maybe 8 feet tall the building was, okay? This guy standing next to the shed was shoulder head above the shed. Well, now you can do the math. You can figure out how tall this guy was. He could have been between 8 and 9.5 feet tall. I don't know. But looking at him is what got me. Another reason why I thought it was a man. His face was pink, just like a human's. And he had a gray beard that went up around his temples, and it came down like a V. Right down to his crotch was his beard, and gray right down to his crotch. And he was just looking straight ahead. Didn't move. I could have gotten a good picture, but I'm thinking of time and oh, wait a minute. I'm not so much concerned about time, but my thoughts are, what did I just see? OMG. It's a Bigfoot, and what else could it be? And your mind is saying this, oh, it's a tree trunk next to the building. That was my first thought. Like maybe the guy bent down and I didn't really see, but I saw the movement, but didn't realize there was a tree next to the building. Well, guess what? I went back later. There is no tree anywhere near. They're up behind, but there's nothing right next to the shed. Well, that was a surprise to me, and it really confirmed what I really did see that day. And I wish that I had a picture of it because it was awesome. Now, there is talk. Not all Bigfoot are the same. They don't look the same. They have the basic, of course, shape with head, shoulders, arms, legs, whatever, and a face. But there's clans. There's clans of Bigfoot, and they look different, okay? And it seemed like going down the mountain highway, the clans off to the right were gentle. They'd make noises to get your attention and stuff, make hoots and hollers. But over on the side where this one was, up higher, about 2,700 feet, they're very vocal and very angry, like aggressive, making sounds much more than the ones on the south side of the highway. Very interesting. But then and their faces are kind of a gray color, more human than ape looking, okay? Now here's this one comes along with facial features just like a human. Now you know and can understand why people say they can't shoot one because they look like humans. They're human-like. I totally believe that. They're totally human-like. There's no way of getting out of it. You just sense it. And that's what stuns you to make you think, what did I just see? Well, so I was at the Bigfoot Symposium in November down at Ocean Shores at the Quinault Casino. They have it every year in November. If y'all can get down there, I think it's around the third weekend in November every year. Ran into a fellow who was in the elevator with my wife and I, and he's an artist. He comes from the Olympic Peninsula area. There's a Randall's name. I forget what Randall's first name is. He has a group up there, the Olympic Project is called. This guy knows him. Well, he's an artist now. He gave me a picture of a Bigfoot that he saw when he was 16 years old up at the Olympic National Forest. And he has copied it, and he sells them. He gave me, my wife and I, a picture of what he saw when he was 16. And this Bigfoot looks very much ape-like a big, pronounced, under the nose jetting out with the jaw that kind of jetted out. But that's what he saw. And he likes to share it with people. But I just thought it's very interesting to explain to you that there are different types of Bigfoot. I'm also experiencing that down in Texas here, where the Bigfoots that I'm seeing, have pictures of, have very much a different faces. There's the one that I saw is kind of like a teardrop with it. Hair goes up to a pointed head with his eyes and mouth features appear to be pink, and the fur appears to be real dark brown, real long and straight. And then there's another picture that I have of one standing back behind a cluster of brush that looks like he's smiling. He's got really high cheekbones and a glossy like facial features reflecting the sunlight. Then I have another picture of three of them moving into, I got a GoPro camera I put on the hood of my vehicle, and I got cameras all over, but this particular one turns around facing the road out of the logging area. So it's taking pictures that it's happening all the time that I'm there. In a period of like a minute and a half, as just dark forms move into sight and vision in front of the truck, about 40 feet, 50 feet away. And they're kind of blurry looking. And there's three of them standing there. One of them is turned on the road, looking at the second one that's standing up above, because they bladed off the road there. It's a little berm, so it's a little higher in one area. And anyway, he's standing there looking right at the camera, and the other guy's turned sideways looking at the other two. And like I say, it's almost getting dark. But the interesting thing is, I'm looking at the pictures before they move into the view, and I see them standing there, and then I see them after the view, and it's gone. These are pictures that I don't like to share with people, because you get people on Facebook say, "Oh, yeah, you're drunk," or "What have you been smoking?" or "You're crazy." I'm sorry, I don't have time for that kind of stuff. I'm just sharing with a small group, you all, that they're there, they're out there, they're active. They can appear full body, or they can appear a form of an orb. I don't know how that works. You need to check out orbs and find out. But I have the picture of that one Bigfoot standing there with the shiny face with an orb right there in the picture, right down to the bottom left there. And how do I know it's an orb? Because it's a bright white light in the middle of this totally green field. Okay, go figure that out. And if you zoom in on them, it looks like it has a face on it. And I have many pictures of orbs over the years of that I've been doing Bigfoot research. So I was able to share my 2 sightings with you. I encourage people to go out and get out in the woods. Be like Tommy G and Bigfoot Discovery Ops, and go out and find out for yourself. Is this for real or not? I'm telling you, I believe in them. I believe they're real. I believe with my heart that they're real. And let me share a couple things when you go into the woods. Before I go to the woods, I've had MindSpeak. I've received instructions from them once. Let's go to the MindSpeak thing. So my wife and I were out because we had an RV, and I pulled the Jeep. We go out in the woods. We spend the weekend. I take pictures, just random pictures with my phone. I go back home. We really enjoyed it. And so we're sitting there talking about our last trip into the woods. It's like 3 weeks later, having a cup of coffee in the living room. And plain as I'm speaking to you right now, we're talking about it, and I hear another voice says, "Stay away." I said, "What?" And I turned, I looked at my wife. I said, "Did you say something?" She says, "No." "Did you hear someone say stay away?" She said, "No, but I did. I heard it, plain as day." I've heard people talk about it. I had never experienced it, but I can tell you it can happen to you. It's for real. Accept it for what it is and ask questions. So I said, "Who is this?" And it said again, "Stay away." And so I figured it out. They were telling us to stay away, don't come there that day. Why, I don't know. But I believe it was to protect us, for some reason to protect us. And then I said again, "Who is this?" And it says, "My name is Marta." Marta. And then she says, because Marta was a she, said, my mate is Umer. Umer. And then she said, "Oh," and then because I'd seen I have a picture of a little one and a big one. And I said, "Who's the little one?" And she says, "Kleb. His name is Kleb." And I thought she said Clem, K-L-E-M. She said Kleb, K-L-E-B. And she says, "No." When I said Kleb, she says, "No, Clem." Okay. And so, you see, we had an interaction. But the point is, I listened to them, and I learned from that point on. Anytime I go into the forest, I would start talking to them before I got there, asking permission to come visit them in the woods that week, or I'll name a date and time. And I really didn't get any answer back, but I assumed that was them saying it's okay, because we were making plans to go that one day during the middle of the week. and got the message, stay away. So from then on, every time I go into the woods to visit, I'll get out and I have a method that I use to let them know that I'm there. So if you're a member of BFD, Bigfoot Discovery Ops, you'll know I do this every time. I'll make a noise to let them know in the woods. There's so many people that come in and out of the woods that it's me. It's Tommy G coming to talk to you. And this is the sound. That is like a wooden drum that I found that is from the Isle of Ratonga. And I found it at a musical area in a junk shop down on the Oregon coast. And the Isle of Ratonga is in the Marshall Islands. And it's the Samoan people. They do their dances where they do where they make all those different sounds of different sizes, and they're whittled out of a tree branch. And it's hollow on the inside, and it's really quite cool. So whenever I go into the woods, I always make that sound to let them know it's me. And I'll talk to them, say, hi, it's Tommy G. I'm here. I came to see you, and I brought my friends, and I make my friends introduce themselves to Bigfoot. It's what we're trying to do. Again, it's about Bigfoot discovery. We're letting them know that we're acknowledging the fact that they're there, that it's their home, and we've come to visit. In our sharing, I asked them once, what do you want? What is it that you want? And they told me, Umer told me, we want respect and we want to be left alone. Well, isn't that cool? That's kind of pretty much what we all want, right? They want to be respected. They don't want people running through the woods, chasing them around. We'll go out, we'll set up, and we will set our chairs down. We'll have a fire. We'll play musical instruments around it. Always people come in all different skill levels. Generally, when we get there, we'll always go for a walk out in the area on the paths and everything, just lumbering around in the woods, getting to know the area and letting them know that we're not there to harm them. And they will always come back with some noise, some sound, crashing branches, a whoop, a sound of some kind. And it's just totally awesome. So I have more that I can share, but I know my Bigfoot sightings, they like to try to keep our conversations to about an hour long. So if they want me to come back, I'd be glad to share some more. Again, this is Tommy G with Bigfoot Discovery Ops. And I have a sweatshirt on. It's BFD, it says, with a picture of Bigfoot standing in the middle. And arched over the top, it says Bigfoot Discovery. And down under Bigfoot, it says Ops, Bigfoot Ops. I make sweatshirts, T-shirts. I sell them. I sell those little microphone cases that you put out in the woods for those who want to really research. You got to get out there, get out from behind that keyboard, get out in the woods, do it in the daytime. And if you finally get brave enough, go out at nighttime. I can't go out and sleep in the woods at nighttime because I have to have a CPAP machine, and I have to have it. It's the only way I can live is when I sleep. I could die if I don't, if you know anything about that. But anyway, I just like sharing what I've learned with people. And again, I'm not trying to make money or get rich on it. I just am trying to expand my knowledge base on the subject of Bigfoot and to be able to share it with people like you. And I usually always will say, if I go on Facebook, I will say, good report or whatever, keep on squatching. So I'll sign off with you right now and say again, Tommy G, Bigfoot Discovery Ops, keep on squatching.
Well, that's it for tonight's show. If you've had a Bigfoot sighting and would like to be a guest, please go to mybigfootsighting.com and let us know. Thanks for listening. Have a great night.
Seen a bunch of rundown no-horse towns where the church is the backbone, loves and the plow, and the five-string melodies grooving, with the farmland rows where the roots run deep, beyond the noise of the busy streets, where the songs of the South are soothing. When I hear the front porch picking down, home rhythm ringing out, I don't run from banjo music. Yeah. The sound of a memory brings me back to the bluegrass playing on my dad's 8-track. His pickup man had been through it, getting through the day on Scruggs and Skags, bucking hay bales to those Tennessee jams. There's no other way that I'd do it. When I hear the front porch picking down, home rhythm ringing out, I don't run from banjo music. Yeah. Something going backwards and double time, getting to the soul and the drumming on Kentucky style. Those are the anthems strumming out, country boy living. When I hear the front porch picking down, home rhythm ringing out, I don't run from banjo music. Pace of the city life drives me wild. The only tune is the cars rushing by, with the bass on the stereos booming. When I hear the front porch picking down, home rhythm ringing out, I don't run from banjo music. Yeah. Something going backwards and double time, getting to the soul and the drumming on Kentucky style. Those are the anthems drumming out, country boy living. When I hear the front porch picking down, home rhythm ringing out, I don't run from banjo music. Something going backwards and double time, getting to the soul and the drumming on Kentucky style. Those are the anthems drumming out, country boy living. When I hear the front porch picking down, home rhythm, ride chicken porch swing, mama's best sweet tea kind of sound.